Next, so that's Gozy Stands. The next segment that we will cover is Who Asked for This? In this segment, we will go over a show or movie that reboots or remakes an old work, for better or for worse. And I'll tell you what I think about it at the end. This month's Who Asked for This is, let me do a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, by the way, we are going to be spoiling the fuck out of this. Honestly, and same thing. It's really, when I say spoiler alert, I really don't go into the plot too much. I'm really just talking about the characters, so take that for what you will. This month's show is Bel-Air. And this is a reboot of the beloved sitcom Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that ran through the early and mid-90s. Let's talk about the original for a bit before we get into the new one. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is a sitcom, kind of the first, I kind of like to think of it as the first real black sitcom that really embraced the personality of someone that's from an urban area, a black person that's from an urban area. I feel like prior to this, whenever black people were portrayed in sitcoms, they were portrayed as like very proper, which don't get me wrong, like I feel like I'm pretty proper, like that is definitely how black people are, but I feel like they weren't doing that in earnest. They were not doing that to really portray the black experience. I think they were doing that to placate white people. I feel like back in the day, if they would have showed any other type of black person, the white people would like riot. At least this is what they thought. They thought that the white people would riot and the show would get canceled. And this is kind of the first one that kind of embraced that as a main character. Generally in those shows like Family Matters, like Cosby Show, generally in those shows you had characters like this, but they were never the main character. And this kind of changed that. So the premise is that there's a young kid that's played by Will Smith, that's named Will Smith. Will Smith plays Will Smith. And he is a teenager that lives in Philadelphia, West Philadelphia. And one day he's actually very smart. He's very, he's I guess what you would think as like a hood dude. But he's like extremely smart and extremely talented. He's very gifted at playing piano. He's a straight A student. He's a very gifted basketball player. He's getting scouted for scholarships for college. But one day he got into kind of a bad altercation with a kind of not good person. They didn't really go into detail in the original show about that person, but it was enough to scare his mom into wanting to send him away to live with her wealthy sister and her husband in LA, in the neighborhood of Bel-Air. So she sends Will out there, and when he shows up, he kind of doesn't jive with them. You know, they're a wealthier family living in a very white dominated neighborhood, and this family that lives there, they kind of know how to act around white folks, you know, because like we can't really be ourselves. For those that aren't familiar with the term, it's called code switching, and when you're around that a lot, that code switching kind of becomes your identity. And I think that's what kind of happened to the family here. It's not a bad thing. It just happens. But because of that, when Will comes in, some members of the family kind of feel like that threatens their way of life a little bit. Like they don't want to be seen as, you know, ghetto or something. And they feel this sentiment changes. Don't get me wrong. The sentiment does try and change, but this is how kind of it is at first. So let's talk about the characters. So here is the Banks family plus Will and Jeffrey. The patriarch is Philip Banks, who's a lawyer at the start of the show. He actually ends up as a judge later on in the show. So and his wife is Vivian Banks. This is the newer casting of Vivian. We'll get into that a little bit later. Hello. And she is a professor, I think, at UCLA, an art history professor. The children, I'll start with the oldest, Hillary. Hillary is very beautiful and kind of stupid. We'll get into that a little later, too. Like, they really kind of laid in on Hillary's character being a beautiful idiot, which I'll talk about my opinion on that later. Who still lives with, she was in college, but she dropped out of college and doesn't really want to know what she wants to do with her life. That does also progress in the series. The next oldest child is Carlton. Carlton is around Will's age, and he's very, handsome and smart and plays sports. He's popular in school because he really worked for it. And it became there is a rift between Will and Carlton, because Carlton feels like he earned his place in Bel Air in the school, whereas he feels like Will kind of gets popular kind of quickly, right? Because he's like cool, he's fucking cool, right? And Carlton kind of hates that because he feels like, well, I fucking worked hard to get to where I am, so why the fuck does he get to be popular, you know? So that's kind of where a lot of their friction comes from. But the difference in the new series, we'll get to it, the difference being Will and Carlton actually become quite close quite quickly in the original series, whereas I feel like that rift is a lot more exaggerated in the new series. And then finally, the youngest is Ashley. I think Ashley is a really interesting character, and I'm really curious where they're gonna take her character in the new show, because she really hasn't had a chance to shine yet. But Ashley is interesting because in the show, in the original series, she was like, I think 12 or 13, the actress, when the show started, and she actually grew up with the show. She ended the show as a young woman, like around 18 or 19 years old. And you see it with her character, because her character is also growing up in the show. So I think her character was quite dynamic, growing from the young girl, the young little kid, pretty much the Tootie of the show, into her own, grown woman character, her own identity, her own wants and needs, and her own ambitions. Like, it's really, really interesting where Ashley's character went in the original series, and I'm really curious what they're gonna do in the new series. Absolutely. Yep. Ashley. Oh, that's true. And Ashley is super impressionable. She takes to Will pretty quickly. And it's really interesting because in the new show, I haven't actually seen Ashley and Will really interact much. Whereas in the original series, Ashley loved Will. Like, Will being so cool, she wanted to be just like him. Like, she really latched onto Will early on in the series, and that's actually a really notable difference that I'm actually not seeing in the new reboot. And I'm curious to see where that goes. Let's talk about the cultural impact. This show was pretty fucking, I think, revolutionary when it comes to Black sitcoms. It entered the 90s with such, don't get me wrong, we've had all Black casts in sitcoms prior to that, but it kind of just changed the tone. Like making all different Black experiences like shine on the screen, I think really paved the way for different other newer shows. Like the Wayans brothers came out later in the 90s, what's it called? Martin came out, the Jamie Foxx show, going into the 2000s. You got One-on-One, you got Girlfriends, you got Half and Half. Like, it really, I think, paved the way for different Black personalities, celebrating different Black personalities on TV, and it show, more than anything, because like I mentioned before, I feel like the older Black sitcoms, like in the late 80s and even the early 80s, and even in the fucking 70s, they were very much geared to placate's the wrong word. They were targeted to white people. I feel like Black people, we weren't targeted. We were not the target audience back then. And I feel like this show kind of made clear to showrunners that Black folks can be fucking profitable. We can make money. Black TV shows can make fucking money, and I think that's what this show showed. And then it blew up after that. We have all kinds of Black shows now. So shoot, like Insecure would never have happened. I feel like Insecure would have never happened if this didn't happen. So hell yes. Hello. I see some action in the chat. Hello. Cool. So let's move on to the new series, Bel Air. Now, the biggest change. Let's talk about the changes here. The premise is different. The premise has changed. Basically, it's more, the biggest difference between the old show and the new show is that the new show is a drama. It's dramatic. It still has funny moments. I think it's actually quite funny sometimes, but it's extremely dramatic compared to the old show. Starting with the premise. So same sort of thing. Will gets in trouble and has to get sent to Bel Air. Whereas in the old series, the reason for him getting sent there felt more like to give him a better life, to get him, better opportunities. Whereas in the new show, he is with a friend and he goes to go challenge some guy to basketball, but they're like bad guys. They're like gang members, and his friend brought a gun. His friend is getting the shit, basically something happens and his friend starts getting the shit kicked out of him. Will grabs the gun and shoots it in the air. This is all in the first episode. And in fact, it's like the first 20 minutes of the first episode. He shoots the gun in the air. The cops come, arrest Will, and put a gun charge on him. which threatens to ruin his life. Like I mentioned, he has all of these opportunities. Like he's smart, and he has all these scholarships coming his way, and this will fuck that up. This will fuck it up. So another layer that's new is that he's facing some really serious charges. His Uncle Phil, who is a lawyer, puts in a good word and actually kind of breaks the law a little bit to get his record clean, which is interesting because that actually comes up later in the show. So he has the reason why he has to get sent to Bel Air this time is because that gang member is trying to kill him. It's literally to save his. It's like I told you, it's more dramatic. It's way more dramatic. Like, it's not just to give him better life. It's straight up, he's gonna fucking die. He's gonna get shot if he stays in Philly. So that's the reason why they sent him. And honestly, I think that was like a stronger reason. Like, while it makes sense to me that like you would send someone with like wealthier relatives to give them a better life. That actually happened to me. Like when I was younger, my cousin came to live with me and my mom and my dad. To give him a better life because he's from a bad area. So I buy that, but this just feels more, it hits home more. I think it was a more effective telling of the story. But that's pretty much that's it on how the premise changed. It's just more dramatic. And I think it works. It's really weird. I think it works. Going to an Eagles game. Oh, no comment. Now, the change in characters. Let's talk about how the characters have changed. And they have all changed. I think maybe the only character in here that hasn't really changed much is Will. I think his portrayal of the character itself has not changed much from the original. However, something that I fucking love is that the showrunners are focusing more on Will's serious side. I feel like the original show did that, but for the most part, Will was just a clown because he's funny. Will Smith is funny, so they would just give him a bunch of jokes. Whereas in this show, he's still funny and cool and charming, and everybody likes him. But the show really focuses on how he feels. You know, how does he feel? What's going through his mind with all this shit happening to him? Like, how does he feel about leaving all his friends? I feel like the original series really did not touch on like how Will felt about abandoning his life in Philly to come out here. You know, the new show really did a good job of like showing him struggle with it. Like, he even tries to run away. Like the second day, he was just like, fuck this, and he fucking pays Jazz. It was actually kind of nice how he met Jazz too. He pays Jazz to take him to the airport, but he couldn't even get out the damn gate because Jeffrey fucking came in. Jeffrey's like a fucking spy in this, by the way. Jeffrey is like, he's like just a butler in the original series. He's like a straight up like fucking Idris Elba spy in this. Like, he is so mysterious. I'm not even gonna talk about Jeffrey because I don't even know what the fuck is up. I don't know what the hell is going on with Jeffrey. But I do know he's fine though. But no, yeah, Will, and honestly, Jabari Banks' acting is really great too. We'll get into the acting a little bit later. Let's move on to Aunt Viv. So they changed Aunt Viv's character quite a bit, but also not really though. Like, he's Alfred Pennyworth. Oh yeah, kind of. Yeah, Alfred Pennyworth. Yeah, shit. Because you got Alfred Pennyworth being like doing like cameras doing like fucking computers and shit. Like, he's Jeffrey, yeah. But that also implies that Phil is Batman, which he's not. But no, anyway, back to Aunt Viv. So Aunt Viv is still kind of the same premise in that she is a professor she's an art history professor at some college. I'm pretty sure it's UCLA. But what they did to her character is that they made it so her backstory is actually in being an artist. I don't actually remember if the original Aunt Viv was an artist, but this Aunt Viv is, and she actually had a whole career as an artist. Like, she's incredibly talented. All of her art really centers around portraying blackness, the beauty in blackness, you know, and it's kind of, I really like her art actually. There's even like homages to the original series in her art, which I didn't even realize until recently. But it's really cool. It's really but here's the thing, when Uncle Phil, I guess, got out of law school and started like kind of really gaining traction in his law career, and they started their family, she felt overwhelmed by it and she quit. She decided to not be an artist anymore and to just, you know, look after her family. And a part of her has been like missing all that time. Like, she feels she's happy. This woman loves her family, y'all. She loves her fucking family. But I mean, a part of her is also thinking like, when's it gonna be my turn? When do I get to shine? You know? So Aunt Viv's character, and she loves her. Aunt Viv is probably my favorite character in the show, guys. Like, she's, oh god, woo. Yep. Oh, I'm so curious to talk about. Okay, we're gonna talk about Aunt Viv, Kane, because I got some stuff. We got some stuff to say. Because I'm actually curious about your perspective on it, because I didn't really love the second Aunt Viv, the light skinned Aunt Viv, and as a result, I didn't really like follow her very much. But we'll talk about Aunt Viv in a few minutes. Uncle Phil. His character, we're going to talk about a little more about him as well. He's a lawyer, and in the show, when the show started, he's running for district attorney, which is interesting. It's an interesting, not departure from the original show, because I'm pretty sure that James Avery's Uncle Phil also ran for some sort of office at some point in the show. But it was interesting to open on the family when he's in the middle of this, because it's kind of portraying him as the type of person to put his ambitions, ahead of his family. He's not doing this on purpose. But he's just like letting his ambitions cloud his judgment a little bit. Like there's an interaction with his son later. Carlton has like a substance abuse problem, and it's a little bit obvious, at least from the audience perspective, but Uncle Phil is just so distracted and not really paying attention that he like, I don't know. I don't know if the subtext of the scene was to show that Uncle Phil kind of knew about it, but was like actively like denying it, so that he could focus on his, but I don't know, it just kind of seemed like he was either ignorant as fuck about his son's life, or he was straight up purposefully ignoring the fact that his son is like a clear drug abuser. And I don't know. But yeah. So that's a good segue into Carlton. Carlton in the new show, is kind of a dick. I don't know, man. I really don't like how they've portrayed Carlton. He's kind of a little bitch. I feel like the original Carlton was also kind of a little bitch, but it was funny. Like it was played for laughs. Whereas in this one, it's like he's like, I hate him. You hate him. Like, oh my God, he's just being a dick to Will for no reason either. Like ignoring the fact that Will has been struggling and is trying to adapt. Carlton is just actively making it worse for him, and it's just like amazing. He's in the show. He's since let up on that, but they really came in hard with it, and I was like, okay, dude, Carlton sucks. Moving on to Hillary. Okay, Hillary's difference, how they changed Hillary is, I think, my favorite change of any character they changed. Because as y'all remember, she was the Valley Girl airhead in the original series. That she is not. That she is not in the new series. And I fucking love that they did that. They made her smart. They made her talented. They made her driven. Like she basically has the same premise in that she went to college and she realized she didn't want to do this. You know, she didn't really know what she wanted to do, but she knew she didn't want to do this. So she dropped out of school. But the difference with this Hillary versus the last Hillary, this Hillary decided to try something. You know, the last Hillary was just literally like spending up her parents' money and not doing shit, where this Hillary was like trying to become an influencer on social media. And you know what? I'm sure some people will probably try to say, oh, that's not a real job. Yeah, the fuck it is. That's like saying streaming ain't a real job. This is a lot of fucking work, like just like that. So I have so much fucking respect for her. She got into an ultimatum with her mom because her mom didn't see it as real work, but she did, and she actually was getting like a following too. She had something like 30,000 followers on Instagram or something. Like she was really, not to mention they made her a talented cook. She's a cook. She can cook delicious food. The original Hillary couldn't even pick up the damn spatula. Like, I swear to God, like what they did with Hillary is just incredible. I love how they changed her character. Moving on to Ashley. Okay, so in the new show, she has not really been featured very much, but a very notable change that they made with Ashley is that they made her queer. She's gay. She likes girls, and the most that's not even the notable thing about her, right? That what I love about what they did with Ashley's character, and it's something you do not normally see with characters, LGBTQ plus characters that are presented in media, how they're portrayed. Usually when you see LGBTQ plus characters portrayed in media, they're usually at the beginning of their journey. They're usually when they're first like coping, or not coping's the wrong word, when they're first trying to accept and love themselves as who they are. Whereas where they put Ashley knows who she is. She's like, I like girls. She's not ashamed of it. She's not that that's a bad thing, but I mean, they're centering on her character at a point in her journey that you do not normally see. with LGBTQ plus characters. She's not at a point in the show where she's not at a point in her life where she's ready to talk to her parents about it. But she's secure in herself. She doesn't feel she knows who she is, and she's like, I am who I am. And I thought that was really fucking cool, because you really don't see LGBTQ plus characters portrayed that way these days. And I really thought that was really an interesting choice. And like I said, we ain't gonna talk about Jeffrey, because I don't know what the fuck's going on with his character. The modern cultural impact. So a lot of it's much the same, I think. At this point in time, many shows, many black shows have come and gone, are ongoing, have paved the way for a show like this. So it really does not have the same impact that I think the original Fresh Prince had, but I think it does still have an impact, right? It's showing black wealth in a way that is, I don't know, classy is not the right word. I love how they portray black wealth and sophistication. You know, they're showing a country that has a lot. There are a lot of people in this country that for some reason still believe black people cannot be wealthy, black people cannot be sophisticated, black people cannot be successful. There are a lot of people in this country that feel that way, and it's fucked up. And this show unapologetically shows why that's bullshit. Like the way that every character in the show carries themselves with gravitas and class, it's kind of incredible to me to see. I really, really, really love to see that. So, and a lot of black people, you barely see white people in this show. Like, not even just the Banks family. They got a lot of black characters in the show that are also equally wealthy, all interacting with each other, all proud of their wealth, proud of where they came from, proud of their success, and just being successful black excellence. Like, it's just really fucking cool to see. Why is this show so great? The acting is so well done. It's so funny because most of the characters or most of the actors in the show are kind of nobodies. Like, I think the actor that plays Aunt Viv is maybe like the most, like, I think I've seen her in another thing, but every other person in the show, I've like never seen them in anything. And they're so fucking talented. They really could have sold out and got a whole bunch of like big name actors, but they really fucking took the risk, and it paid off because the acting is really fucking well done in this show, especially Jabari Banks, who plays Will. Like, I swear to God, like this guy must have like watched the original series 3 times end to end. Because the way that he portrays Will Smith, he's like a little Will Smith. There were times in the show where if I closed my eyes and heard him talk, I would think that's Will Smith. I was convinced at one point that there were times where the actual Will Smith was just dubbing some lines for him, because I swear this dude, his voice sounds just like him sometimes. I am so shocked. It really does. I'm so fucking shocked. Like, he has done such a good job. It's a heavy burden to carry a show, to be the center of the show. And he fucking does it. He wears the crown. The soundtrack is so good. It's so good, guys. If there's nothing else you take away from this show tonight, go get on Spotify and look up the soundtrack to Bel Air. That soundtrack is so good, and it's like so notably good. The last show that I can think of that I watched where the soundtrack was so because normally when you're hearing like a song play in a transition or something, you don't really think too much of it. You're like, oh yeah, that's a good song. This one, multiple times in a single episode, I would just like hear a song and I'm like, oh, to the stank face, oh, okay, that's good. Like, I swear to God, the soundtrack is so good. Go look up that soundtrack. Holy shit. Aunt Viv, we went into this a little bit. I really love what they did with Aunt Viv. You know, they really changed her and made her like a more 3-dimensional character. And I think she's more akin to the dark-skinned Aunt Viv. Like I said, Kane, I don't really remember a lot about light-skinned Aunt Viv, because I just know I love dark-skinned Aunt Viv, right? And I feel like this Aunt Viv really channels her more. I feel like, and you know what? Here's the thing. It's actually a systematic thing that happened on the show. It's kind of fucked up. This came out last year when they did the reunion special. The dark-skinned Aunt Viv, the actor that played her, was ousted from the show because she clashed with Will Smith, with the actor Will Smith. And they ousted her from the show and kind of branded her as difficult to work with, which happens a lot. That's going to come up later in the show, y'all. Stay tuned for the second part of the show. That happens a lot in Hollywood. And as a result, her career kind of stagnated after that. You know, And they brought in the new actress to play Aunt Viv, and they kind of really severely diminished her role. I think the original Aunt Viv, the dark skinned Aunt Viv, the original actor that played her, the writers really focused on making her very three-dimensional, giving her desires and wants and needs and ambitions and a voice, whereas the new Aunt Viv, they kind of like put her in the background a little bit. I feel like they really just diminished her. So I'm really glad the new Aunt Viv, they really are channeling the old Aunt Viv, because they're making her kind of like honestly, I think she's more of a main character than Uncle Phil is at this point. I think she's more of a main character than Uncle Phil is at this point. It's kind of crazy. Like, she really is outshining that guy. But yeah, Aunt Viv, she's amazing. Hillary, I already kind of went into this already. She, this has to be the biggest improvement on the show. Actually making Hillary a fucking real character instead of a fucking punchline. Like, I swear, this has to be the best. Like, she's, I respect her. I respect Hillary. She has good advice. She cares about her siblings. She's the first one that Ashley opens up to about her queerness, And she gave her good advice, and she supported her. Like, she said, Ashley, do you want to tell anybody else about this? No? Okay, then I'm here for you. Tell me what you need from me. Like, she was a supportive sister. When Will tells her about Carlton's substance abuse problem, she's supportive. She says, okay, Will, I think you have to step up here, because if it comes from me, he's not going to listen to me. He opened up to you about it. Like, she's smart. She's smart. She has street smarts. Like, she's a really good character, bro. Hell yes. Yes, check this show out, y'all. This is a good show. Oh, it so should. Now, what's not so great about the show? Carlton in the original series was actually likable. Even from day one, like, he had like eye roll moments where you're just like, okay, shut the fuck up, Carlton. But like, they made him like kind of silly and slapsticky, so it kind of gave him a little bit more charm. Whereas in this one, Carlton is like actively a dick. He's actively a fucking dick. Like, there was a point in the show where at first, when Will first joined the academy where they go to school, which, funny enough, this academy is not an all boys. Like, in the original series it was all boys. This one's co-ed, so that was an interesting departure too. Will was kind of an outcast at first, Yeah, affluent, there we go, affluent. Like, he's like he felt like Carlton felt like he was better than Will. He felt like he was fundamentally better than Will. He would like make jabs at Will for not being rich, like for where Will came from. And I feel like Carlton in the original series didn't do it that quite on the nose like that. He would like suggest like, oh, you're not used to this. Oh, whereas this one's just like, I don't even want to quote him. He's just, oh my God, such a fucking dick. There was a point in the new show where so one of Carlton's classmates does something to Will to try to get him expelled. I'm not going to say what it is because it's really shocking, and I want you guys to watch the show. Carlton doesn't do anything about it. He knows who did it. He knows what they did and who did it, and he stays quiet. And he was about to be okay. He was about to just like let Will get expelled for something he didn't do. The old Carlton wouldn't have done that. And I'm not even going to knock him on his substance abuse problems, because I think that's actually one of the better parts of his character, like showing how when you're in an affluent family and your parents are very successful, like when your parent, like who out there in the audience has like, anybody knows that somebody that has parents that are like super high achievers, parents that are surgeons, brain surgeons, parents that are lawyers, parents that are like super wealthy, and they grew up wealthy, but they feel like they have to achieve high too, they feel like a lot of pressure to also do that. And some parents are good about it. Some parents tell them like, oh, it's okay. You don't need to take the path I took. You can do whatever path you want. Like, they give them that reassurance. But I feel like a lot of kids, they sit here, their parents don't do a good enough job of doing that. And as a result, when they aren't a high achiever, when they feel like they're not living up to their parents, they have issues. And in Carlton's case, he feels extreme anxiety, panic attacks when he's not the best at something. And that's part of the reason why he, like, I think, clashed with Will so much, because when he sees all of this stuff that he worked so hard for and how Will's getting it so easily, his anxiety starts acting up and he starts acting out. And that's what he does the drugs for, to cope with that, Yep, exactly. Yep. It's crazy. It's crazy. So like in that stance, honestly, I kind of am convincing myself into liking him more just the more I talk about it. Because in that aspect of his character, I think they did a fantastic job. But I mean, he could have been less of a dick. Uncle Phil. Now, Uncle Phil is not objectively a bad character, but the way that they're portraying him in the show is unfortunate because the original Uncle Phil they portrayed so well. James Avery, rest his soul, did an amazing job playing Uncle Phil, being a father to his kids and a father to Will. And this Uncle Phil is so wrapped up in this district attorney race is that he's like kind of ignoring. He's this, and I think this is the reason why I like Aunt Viv so much, because now it's making the Aunt Viv character kind of step into that role, you know, and that's what's making us love her so much, because she's the one that's supporting the kids, and Uncle Phil kind of isn't. And the only time Uncle Phil steps into his family matters is when something they're doing is affecting his bid for district attorney. Something happened in the last episode. The new episode's coming out tomorrow. Something happened in the last episode that makes me feel like this will change. You know, that his character is taking a different direction. It hasn't happened yet. So my opinion for this Uncle Phil, he's just not doing the character of Uncle Phil a good service right now. I hope they change. I hope they change my mind. I hope they change my mind. Next, forced racism. There's this character, this white guy you see here, his name is Connor, okay? He's like the only character in the show that really has been overtly racist. There's been other characters in the show that have done microaggressions, which is a little bit more accurate, I think. But he's so overtly racist that it's so forced, because I feel like there is not a white person in this country right now that lives somewhere like LA that's gonna act like this around. Like, how many black people are in this? Okay, this is a bad example, but there's a lot of black people that go to the school. They're not going to be over. Like, there was a moment in the show where they're all in the locker room. Will had just joined the basketball team at this point. They're all in the locker room and they're singing a song that has the N-word in it. And Connor's over here. He's saying the N-word, and Carlton's like, just yeah, go Connor. Carlton's kind of going a little Uncle Tom with it, letting him do it. Will comes in and says, "Yo, dude, what the fuck? You can't say that." And Connor and Carlton's sitting here like, "Oh, come on, Will, chill." This was kind of the first moment where I was like really not a fan of Carlton, by the way. Very, very much self-hate, not a fan of self-hate. But I mean, there's like recurring shit like this. Like, we find out the thing that happened to Will that almost got him expelled, this guy did. This guy fucking did it. And he's just so unapologetically racist, and it's very overt. I want to say his role in the show is about to be a little bit more diminished because something happened recently that makes me feel that way. I hope so, because I think he's a weak part of the show. This is nitpicky. This is a very small part of the show. He's a very minor character. This is very nitpicky. So I won't lay into it this too much, but I do feel like his character specifically enforcing the racism aspect is just a little bit too exaggerated, and it's kind of distracting. But yeah. Verdict. We may not have asked for this remake, but holy shit, are we happy they gave it to us. It is so rare. It is so rare when they remake a show or a movie and it ends up actually improving on the source material. And I think this is an example of it. Like, there is not a lot that they've done with this show that detracts from the original. I think it's only going up. I'm so fucking excited to see what they do with it, and y'all should give it a watch if you haven't watched it yet. All right, spoiler alert over. Where is it? Boop. All right, and that was Who Asked for This.